with a title insurance policy. The escrow side acts as an independent third party, managing the transfer of money and documents between the buyer, seller, lenders, and others. Security Title has the management of real estate closings down to a science. Give us a call. We are here to help.
We're already Pica's best radio station, but we're always looking for ways to be even better. Announcing the point on Alexa. In addition to our FM and HD radio feeds, our incredible app, informative website, Facebook Live, and YouTube Live, you can now tell Alexa to stream The Point. And your smart speaker will start playing whatever we're saying. News and views 24/7 with your 4-word command. Alexa, stream The Point. Come try Guam's original Chamorro restaurant with Pica's best 5 years running. Mezcla Chamorro Fusion Bistro. Experience Chef Peter's candied salmon over scallion coconut rice, octopus tinactac, Chamorro platter, and their award-winning gourmet hamburgers. Or if you're looking for something healthy, try their keto-friendly menu. Come and enjoy Mezcla's half-a-day service at their Hagåtña and Grand Plaza Tuma location. Call their Hagåtña location at 479-2652 for reservations.
Welcome to Tall Tales with Bob Klitzkie, the only show on talk radio where common sense is a lot more common. Phone lines are now open at 888-TALK. That's 888-8255. And now, The Point proudly brings you Tall Tales with Senator Bob Klitzkie.
A well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. That's what my favorite justice, Mr. Justice Clarence Thomas, just said a couple days ago. The right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. And that's my story, and by gosh, I'm sticking with it. Thank you, Jose. All right, so let's see what we got here on Zemi Ikotny today. The title, Our View, Defense of Guam remains top priority for Indo-Pacific Command. A recent article in the South China Morning Post and a news broadcast making the rounds on social media have some residents worried that Guam could be in the crosshairs of a Chinese military attack. From the military's perspective, neither the sentiment about the importance of defending Guam nor the threat from China are new. In a December 2021 Defense.gov article, Marine Corps Lieutenant General Stephen D. Slenka, the deputy commander of U.S. Indo-Pacific Command, said these have been serious concerns for years. It's been top priority for the last 3 years, going on 4, and the past 2 successive commanders have gone on the record to state this. They've warned all that will listen that the threat to Guam will only increase over the next 5 years. Those aren't idle threats. Those are based off events that we're seeing unfold around us right now. The recent article in the broadcast stemmed from a discussion Friday with U.S. Indo-Pacific Command Admiral John Aquilino, hosted by the Foundation for Defense of Democracies, a Washington-based think tank. Yeah, I wonder if we could make an alliance with our think tank, the Tall Tales think tank, with that one. I don't know. They probably aren't at the same level we are.
We'll play catch up with them.
Yeah. No, they got to catch up with us. Yeah. When asked what Americans need to know about the threat from China, Aquilino said that the nation is undergoing the largest buildup since World War II, and the declaration of a no-limits policy supporting Russia is troubling. He said if China and Russia were to truly demonstrate and deliver a no-limits policy, I think what that means is we're currently in an extremely dangerous time and place in the history of humanity, if that were to come true. Aquilino was also asked the importance of Guam bases as a deterrence to aggression in the region. Guam is extremely important, he said, explaining all bases and allies west of the international date line are critical. Guam is absolutely a strategic location. We will need to operate from Guam. We will need to both fight for and from Guam, and it will provide a variety of capabilities and support functions should we end up in some crisis situation. Within the last year, the U.S. military has home-ported 5 fast attack submarines on Guam, and a more robust missile defense system is in the works. During a Congressional Armed Service Committee hearing March 2021, Admiral Philip Davidson, then commander of the U.S. Pacific Command, said his number one priority was a defensive system on Guam. The threat as it has developed in the Western Pacific has moved in a way in which we need to have better integrated air and missile defense capability on Guam in order to defend it, Davidson said during the hearing. As we look at the expanse of Chinese Western weapon systems and their employment of air and maritime forces in the region, we need a 360-degree defense now of Guam. And it must be able to meet the ballistic missile threat that can come from China as well as PRC ships. But it also should meet the 360-degree threat around Guam that comes from circumnavigations of Guam by PRC naval assets, including submarines that could shoot land attack cruise missiles, for example, as bomber approaches, and its ability to shoot land attack cruise missiles as well. We have to be able to defend against all those threats. With Russia's attack on Ukraine possibly emboldening other nations, and an alliance between Russia and China being especially troubling, it's important to remember our strategic location in the world. While this makes the island valuable to the United States, it also makes it vulnerable. In a defense article, Slenka argued for the missile defense system. Guam is a place where our combat power will aggregate and congregate, and from which it will emanate. Now, that's a nice sentence. Let me try that again. Guam is a place where our combat power will aggregate and congregate, and from which it will emanate. Nice.
Sound like Jesse Jackson.
From there, we send a powerful strategic message to our allies and our adversaries that the United States has invested in this region. We prioritize the Indo-Pacific. Well, once again, more like a news article than an editorial, but it's nice to have this information in one spot. And I'm going to make a prediction here, being, reincarnating myself as Karnak the musician, Karnak the magnificent. Bitching, grumbling, griping, and showing anger. The reaction of Michael Bavacqua and the separatists to this information. Yeah, they will make a lot out of this. We're just another target, and we have no voice in defense policy, and on and on and on and on. Squeezing that orange, which is green, till all the juice is gone from it. Not quite understanding that if they got their wish and the United States pulled out, took every single military asset with it, and beat all of the swords into plowshares and left nothing behind, the Chinese would still come in and take this island over. And they would not be dissuaded by a group of, quote, cultural dances, out on the landing fields, doing those cultural dances that we've been doing for almost 40 years. and are flying the rainbow flag. This would not cause them to say, oh, we should just leave Guam alone because, the Chamorros and their culture. It just isn't going to happen, folks. It's a real world that we live in, not a make-believe world that we live in. So back when I wrote a note to the Daily News as to what I wanted, the subject was, what would you like to hear Lilian Guerrero talk about in her State of the Territory? And I started out by telling about the stuff I don't want to hear. I didn't want to hear a lot of identity politics. But I did want to hear this. I wanted to hear this, the fact that we know that this is the front line of the defense of America. And we are proud to be defending the homeland. We take this matter very, very seriously, and you can count on our complete support to defend the homeland. And just as you can depend on our support, we're looking for yours, because it's a prosperous, thriving Guam is not only good for Guam, but it's good for the whole country. So let's work together here, folks. And that's still my message. We are the front line of the defense of America. Let's talk about it. Let's be proud of it. Let's tell folks that, when Kim Jong-un was threatening sending rockets to Guam, we went eye to eye with Kim Jong-un, and he blinked first. We've withstood wars and typhoons and pandemics and Red Queens and God knows what other kind of threats. And we're still standing, and we're still doing pretty well. So let's be proud of who we are, where we are, and what we can do. And let's not whine and cry and bitch and talk about the marginalized people and all of this garbage that the left loves so much. That's my take on today's editorial, Jose. Maybe I should have written it myself.
That was for you.
Yeah, thank you. All right, let's see what we got on the card for today. Of course, we start out with Paul Zerzan and systemic racism. And then I've got Kelly Turnbull versus Tall Tales. It's going to be a bitter pill for me to swallow that I was wrong 2 days in a row. I was talking in terms of our hockey team, our six hockey players on the Supreme Court, and the hat trick that they were able to score, thinking that a hat trick meant that it was when this team scored 3 goals. But we found out yesterday that it's when one player scores 3 goals. So I'm going to say Clarence Thomas scored a hat trick, because the lefties are all now saying it ain't the Roberts court, it's the Thomas court. And I couldn't be happier about that. So there's that. And then Kelly Turnbull called me on my entreaty when we found out about the Dobbs case that conservatives shouldn't gloat. So I am wrong twice in a row. Then I've got Michael San Nicolas versus Congress. And the theme here is kind of the artistry of Michael San Nicolas. Like him, dislike him, favor him, whatever, you got to give the guy a lot of credit, because he knows how to make the media work for him. Okay, going on with the hat trick, we've got time versus leaving. I have invented a new word, aborters. Next item on the card is aborters versus SCOTUS. Aborters are not people that do abortions. They're people who favor abortions. Jane Flores is the classic example of an aborter. Right up there with Leon Guerrero. Next on the card, I've got Mannix versus Underwood. You remember that old detective show, Jose? Mannix?
I recall the title. I don't think I've seen it.
Yeah. Then I've got the left versus the Sixth Amendment. Guam versus San Nicolas. Te
Round
Amte.
two.
Yeah, the Suruhanu. And then I've got Brown versus the Board of Medical Examiners, Waukesha versus Brooks, Scottus versus Miranda, Jennifer Grandholm versus Gasoline, and I might get to Dersh and Turley versus Nancy someday, but it's still on the card. Okay, so here we go again, systemic racism. You know the drill by now. The rice is orange. Anybody who comes along and says, and Paul Zerzan says, let's call things by their real names. When the rice is orange, we should not refer to it as red because it ain't. And the Daily News came back and canceled Paul Zerzan almost the next day. So we see this all the time. We see the analogy, the narrative. The narrative is that, the rice is red. It's always been red. It's part of our culture. I learned from my grandparents that the rice is red. You go to a fiesta and people ask you, "Como lago hawidzi agagana henexa?" Do you want some red rice? Nobody talks about orange rice. So if you're going to call it orange rice, you're just dead wrong and you should shut up. That's the narrative. The truth is, as you can see by looking at the picture, that the rice is not red, it's orange. So we see this all the time. The aborts are so good at it. The Supreme Court just took away our democracy.
Wrong.
Yeah, by allowing states to decide this important question. And a woman has a right to her own bodily integrity. Anybody who doesn't understand that is obviously a man and is mentally retarded, therefore, and on and on and on and on. So, the aborts have some arguments, but they never get to them because they're so stuck on their own narrative that when they open their mouths, something sensible hardly ever comes out. Okay, so let's see. I didn't take this item out of my papers here today. It's Mary Torres versus Brown, and I spent some time with it yesterday. It's Mary Torres's swan song, telling us that she served us for so long and so very well. If you ever wanted if you didn't know what the phrase virtue signaling meant, get out yesterday's post and read Mary's swan song. So she told us what a wonderful job she's done. And then she's told us, about the bad people that make it impossible for her to go on any longer. So yesterday when Daryl was here, I lamented the fact that we can't play copyrighted music because if we did, we'd be kicked off Facebook. So Daryl and I sang the first few measures of a song that was so applicable to Mary Torres's swan song. Don't Cry for Me, Argentina.
The truth is she'll never leave us?
It's it. Don't cry for me, Argentina, Mary Torres said. Don't cry for me, Barragada.
The truth is I never left you.
I kept my promise. Don't keep your distance. Yeah. Well, I have a little autobiographical experience here, Jose. I didn't, back in the day, in the year 2000, we took a long tour around South America, and we visited Buenos Aires. What's new, Buenos Aires? In Argentina. And one of the places we visited was the cemetery in which Evita Perón is interred. And it's still a source of great worship for Argentinians. So I should have taken a picture of it and brought it back. But I'm looking for somebody who can do memes. I sent out a call for someone who could do memes. If we could morph Mary Torres's face on Patty Lupone, and then stand her next to Juan Perón and do a video of, not you and me, but somebody, do a soundtrack of someone, a female voice singing "Don't Cry for Me, Argentina." That'd be a winner, wouldn't it, Jose? We can't do it. We're not good enough. We are not good enough to do that one.
We're not going to get a second audition.
No, we're not. Okay, looking at the public law 3634. Once again, what's new? The hospital, old business, board of trustee. Are they that dense up there? I wonder what happens when they have to actually treat sick people, if they could have any idea of how to do that. Okay, Kelly Turnbull versus Tall Tales. This is something I plucked from Town Hall. Kelly Turnbull has written a book called We'll Be Back, The Fall and Rise of America. He's an author. And this is what he said. The headline of this story is "Go Ahead and Gloat," telling me that Kelly Turnbull and Town Hall must be tailgaters, because this is directed straight at me. We should understand that the Dobbs abortion decision may have deeply upset some people, and in this difficult time for them, we should acknowledge their pain and do everything we can to make it much worse. The pro-abort weirdos, losers, and mutations, as well as terrible Twitter lawyers, are mad because they can't freely kill babies everywhere anymore, and they should feel bad. They are bad people whose moral illiteracy cannot be cured by reason, so it has to be sufficient that they experience pain. This is the only way they will learn. Get gloating, people. We have much to gloat about today. We're winning. We're winning the war of a lot of weak hearts that did not really want to fight. Hi, David French. If you had your way and Felonia Millhouse von Pantsuit had won in place of the guy with the mean tweets, Felonia von Millhouse Pantsuit is obviously Hilarious Clinton. Instead of abortion being restricted, it would be subsidized and probably mandatory until puberty. Subsidize abortion, mandatory until puberty. That way we'll make sure we'll get them all, right? You bet we should be smug and insufferable in victory, especially because so many people in our corner, or allegedly in our corner, ahoy, you cruise ship conservative saps, are always so eager to declare us defeated and that the war for America's collective soul has been definitively lost. We have gotten too used to decline, too used to not winning, and the establishment is perfectly comfortable with that. In my new nonfiction book called We'll Be Back, The Fall and Rise of America, I sketch out the problem. There's a sense in our country that we are too far gone, that we cannot go back to something like normal. The last 2 decades have been anything but normal, a nonstop barrage of terrorism, economic collapse, political battling, cultural warfare, and pandemic insanity. It was not one black swan, but a flock of them. Biden was supposed to make things normal again, but he hasn't. He can't. He doesn't want to. His handlers need us impoverished, so we need them. They need us divided so they can leverage Group A against Group B. They need a crisis, the flu, the weather, an insurrection. So we cannot think and cannot debate and cannot stop them from solving the crisis by doing what they always wanted to do anyway. Our freedom shrinks. Our prosperity shrinks. Our anger grows. Change must come, as this is unsustainable, and the time of changing is here. So gloat about our victory, about the victory for what's right, so that our enemies not only fully understand that they are on the side of the suck, but that we're really going to utterly defeat them. All their dreams of faculty lounge fascism will die. But it's not enough that we merely defeat them. We must make the rubble bounce. This macro pathology masquerading as an ideology must be completely repudiated, that it can never raise its hideous head again. Infanticide, wokeness, Marxism, the climate hoax, they're all just colors of the rainbow of evil, tenets of a pagan religion that fills the void in their souls where God should be. Invertebrate sissies insist that we should temper our joy. Boy, invertebrate sissies. I guess that was me. That we should not rub their smug, scowling faces in their defeat. But no, this is misguided sissy talk. Oh, sissy talk. Are there such things as sissies anymore, Jose?
Apparently to Turnbull there is.
Yeah. There is misguided sissy talk from the losers whose spineless refusal to confront evil before it infected every institution, allowed the disease to spread to the point where we're tattooed manatees with blue hair and piercings are out in public shouting their abortions, reveling in the blood of babies, and what amounts to these people living out their daddy issues on a societal level. They'll show all of us by celebrating their transgression and their degradation that goes along with it. I got to stop here. It's impossible to separate our choice of whether and when to have children from every other choice in our lives. Classic example. They'll show all of us by celebrating their transgression and their degradation that goes along with us. It's not just trying to shock us by embracing the slaughter of the innocents. The same phenomenon is apparent when some carnival attraction goes on TikTok to explain how X loves to tell the kindergartners, Z loves to tell the kindergartners in Z's classroom about Z's non-binary femiqueer butch tendency identity. And that's just the ones who are not trying to outright diddle the kiddies. We have a whole segment of society that acts like Biden kids, punishing society daddy by descending into drugs and perversion. And some components of society are A-OK with the figurative, inappropriate showers part. This is no time to go wobbly, to doubt our own righteousness, and therefore fail to forthrightly celebrate our recent victories over Moloch, M-O-L-O-C-H, you biblical scholars. We worked for 50 years through the process of democracy, mind you, to build a Supreme Court majority that would repudiate the destruction of our freedom and embrace the atrocities like freewheeling abortion. And we should not apologize for having succeeded. And that again is the left. Well, you know, the only reason you guys were able to do this is because you understand the rules. And you took advantage of you shouldn't have done that. It's kind of like, well, here I am. I'm Herman the announcer, and I've got to condemn the Cubs because one of their runners was able to steal home plate and thereby score the winning run. He stole it.
How dare you?
Yeah, same thing. We should not apologize for having succeeded. We should not downplay it. We should not act like we have something to be ashamed of because we're triumphing. Gloat. Get in their faces and make them know they and their garbage fetishes are going into the recycling bin of history. Here's how it is, Progs. We win, you lose. You do not get to kill babies. We keep our guns and we'll carry them around. We're not giving up our SOVs or smoked brisket to please some frigid Santa Monica cat lady's angry weather goddess. We are going to run our schools our way with no commie nonsense or gender study weirdness. And there's not a damn thing these ridiculous whiners can do about it. They must learn that they have lost. So get gloating. Well, I stand corrected. Let's take a short break. Coming back from the break, I'll be talking with... come on, Stack.
Bob Stack wants to tell you that Al's on the line.
Al.
He wants to talk about the legislature.
All right.
The Extra Point with Jerry Roberts of Guam Training.
Hi, I'm Jerry Roberts, and every day on The Ray Gibson Show, I get to comment on the incredibly diverse, fun, challenging, sometimes frustrating, often exciting, but always interesting world of work. I hope you'll be there with us.
You can find daily transcripts of The Extra Point at guamtraining.com. Tune in every weekday morning at 7:20 for The Extra Point with Jerry Roberts. Brought to you by Guahan Insurance Services and First Hawaiian Bank on 93.3 The Point.
Are you looking for a new place to hang out with your friends? Let's go along the sidelines at Sidelines Bar and Grill. Located at 154 Iriarty Road, Unit 4 and 5 in Tamuning behind Royal Bigs. Sidelines, a hidden gem with nothing but great things to offer. Great atmosphere, great food, top shelf drinks, and a great team. What are we waiting for? Let the fun begin at Sidelines Bar and Grill. Open daily from 3 p.m. to 2 a.m. See you there.
Welcome back to Tall Tales with Bob Klitzkie, Guam's single voice of reason. Call now, 888-TALK. That's 888-8255.
Having a little trouble with Facebook again today, so I right now I can't see the posts. I'm going to work on it. As I said yesterday, the posts on Facebook are really an important part of the show, as our callers, such as our current caller, Al, who wants to talk about the legislature. Go for it, Al.
Hey, Bob. So the legislature, two things come to mind over the past 2 years regarding the legislature. It is incompetence and derelict duties and ignorance. But more importantly, incompetence. I'll give you a good reason, or a good example here. Anyone have been around the Paseo Stadium loop area there? There you'll see there are what I call mountain speed bumps that I've been calling every senatorial office, including DPW, Parks and Rec, regarding those mountain speed bumps. And I've always said that was a potential health hazard if you're around the Paseo Stadium area, that loop right there, okay? And when I say public health hazard, it's the response for emergency personnel. If anyone's at the Statue of Liberty Point area right there by the Paseo, right? I've called every office, political office, government office, regarding that DPW speed bump that they created there around the Paseo Stadium, and it's on deaf ears for nearly almost over 2 years. And the thing that surprises me is that Senator Jim Moylan was got together with GFD, and they also concur that those speed bumps in the Paseo Stadium loop area is a potential.
I'll bet you Jim Moylan took prompt action and wrote a letter to the governor, right?
Whatever it is, it was very ineffective because those things still exist. Hence, incompetence, derelict, and ignorance on the legislature's on behalf of the legislature's part, and swift action on the government. I'm just wondering if the government itself would be charged for involuntary manslaughter or murder if somebody dies or something terrible happens out there at that area, and it's just for these almost over 2 years. The legislature, like I said, should have been the voice of the people. Now they're saying that they want to do better. They want to put us in there, so let us finish continuing what we're doing. You had over 2 years, legislature. All you've done was created more crap. You've continued to make us suffer, and then election season, you want to make us feel good. You want to give us smoke and mirrors and all that good stuff. You know what? Go blow it out the rear. Really, Speaker Talahi. Again, the what is that with the doctor arbitration? The doctors protecting the doctors from malpractice and stuff like that. Still no traction on that, by the way. And the other offices with the inactive and inability to try and bring some balance to the government. There, like we said, there's 3 branches: the administrative, the legislative, and the judicial. And again, I want to continue to resound the inability of the legislature during these past 2 years and the grievances that it caused our people. Bob, I also want to touch just a little bit. I don't want to get too far down the controversy with the common flu or the flu that we've been suffering these past couple of years. But, ladies and gentlemen, those Q-tip swabs that they ram up our nasal cavities, you guys should look into the ingredients, okay? And I'll tell you what one of the primary ingredients is called ethylene oxide. In case nobody knows what ethylene oxide is, it is a primary ingredient in coolant. Not only is it a primary ingredient in coolant, it's also a human carcinogen. It's a sterilizing agent for the medical field. However, if you consider the possibility of getting ramrodded every week up your nose, what that carcinogen is doing, even if it's a sterilizing agent, ethylene oxide is a human carcinogen product, okay? And these masks, especially N95 masks, if anyone's done proper research on it, these masks were designed to protect bacterial infections, not viral infections. You can look it up on OSHA website. You can look it up on the CDC website, especially on the N95 mask. Continuous wearing of these masks will compromise your health and your immune system. And our senators, as wonderfully ignorant and some stupid in there, they just everything go by the wayside and continue to stay on the wayside and let everything happen, and then come out this year to say, hey, put us right back in there for what? For more incompetence and stupid laws? I mean, let me see, who's the one that sits on? Well, anyways, the plastic bag thing. Wow, we're gonna ban plastic bags. When Senator then Disco Lee was on that committee, I called her office and I said, hey, Disco Lee, I think you should rethink your strategy on the ban of plastic bags for restaurants and stores. Okay, it's the most oxymoron, idiot thing ever that's caused even myself a little inconvenience, right? Going shopping, because when we go to the stores, all that money's for profit. Okay, I told her, why don't you go back to the plastic manufacturing companies? Senator Biscuit, I hope you're listening, okay? Because you know who I am. And I told you to go back there to the plastic manufacturing companies and tell them to shut it down. Tell them you're a senator from Guam. Shut it down, okay? Because your bill and the law is stupid, all right?
Can you hear the music, Al?
Yeah, everything today.
Can you hear the music, Al?
The music or music?
Yeah, that means I got to take a break. So glad you had a chance to address our international radio listening audience and made some good points. Thanks for calling.
Join
Voice Broadcasting introduces their unbeatable lineup of morning show.
Hands down winners of Guam's morning radio battle.
Daryl Lizama grooves his way through Boss 104 playing Guam's favorite classic hits.
Morning mouth Ray Gibson shakes the cage on 93.3 The Point.
And now, we are proud to announce the Morning Blender with Kyle Mandapat, mixing it up at sunrise on Star 101.
If you're an advertiser trying to reach the most valuable ears, we've got the shows that listeners have been tuning into for decades.
One call gets all three.
671-888-7346. That's 888-REIO.
Come try Guam's original Chamorro restaurant with Pica's best 5 years running. Mezcla Chamorro Fusion Bistro. Experience Chef Peter's candied salmon over scallion coconut rice, octopus tinacta, Chamorro platter, and their award-winning gourmet hamburgers. Or if you're looking for something healthy, try their keto-friendly menu. Come and enjoy Mezcla's half-a-day service at their Hagåtña and Grand Plaza Tumon location. Call their Hagåtña location at 479-2652 for reservations.
Okay, here we are. We had about 15 more minutes till that big halftime show. It's 4:46 right now, 16:46. And the next item on the card is Michael San Nicolas versus Congress, which made its first appearance on the card as Congress versus Mike San Nicolas. I didn't get to it, but in the meantime, the polarity has been reversed. Now it's Michael San Nicolas versus Congress. Every once in a while, I find it necessary to give credit where credit is due, regardless of how my own approach to the issue is, to the person who created the issue or whatever. As an example, when the governor gave her State of the Territory address, I wasn't that enchanted with the content, but I did say she did an excellent job of delivering her speech. Her phrasing was excellent, her gestures, her body language, her makeup, the way she was dressed, very nice performance. And now I have to kind of do the same thing for Michael San Nicolas. And later on, I'll probably get into it a little bit farther. But Michael San Nicolas has demonstrated that when it comes to politics and being a politician, he may very well be as good as we've ever seen. Michael San Nicolas parlayed his refusal to sign the loyalty pledge with the Democrat Party into a seat in the United States Congress, beating Madeline Bordallo, who the smart money said at the time was unbeatable. So by being a rebel, by being a maverick, Michael San Nicolas gathered support that he never had before. And he's done pretty well with it. Now he's got what you might say is a spot of bother. He's got a pending court case with Gura chasing him down. He's got the House Ethics Committee that has now come out with a finding against him. And he has not said boo up until this time. Well, this is what I consider the mastery in the way he knows how to use the media. Because this is today's post above the fold. Get it there just right. San Nicolas and Salas Matanani staying in the race. Okay? Here's the Daily News. Above the fold. San Nicolas not going anywhere. Two really good headlines. And considering what the stories are about, two really favorable stories in the two papers on our island. Now, of course, the thing about the papers is that the social media brigade over at the governor's office that Ray talked about this morning doesn't really have much of a shot at it.
The governor really had opened up some jobs, huh?
Yeah, really.
Hit jobs.
Yeah. Yeah, the ad wanted person who's really good at social media and understands the black arts of politics. No other experience necessary. So what San Nicolas did was he chose the forum. He didn't let anybody else choose the forum. He chose a forum that was very favorable to him. And rather than defend himself against the governor's accusations, he attacked the Ethics Committee of the Congress. And like it or not, what he said was true. That the ethics committee of the House of Representatives did not come up with findings that he had violated the ethical rules of the Congress and forwarded that to the full House. They didn't do that. What they did instead was they said, we're referring this to the Department of Justice. Now, back up a second, and you guys are all tailgaters, Law and Order Notebook, Jose. And I've explained this to you before. In a criminal case, in order for the government to win, they must convince 12 good men and true beyond a reasonable doubt that the defendant did what he's accused of without excuse or defense, beyond a reasonable doubt. In some kind of regulatory cases, the standard is preponderance of the evidence. In the standard civil case, it's probable cause, or let's see, not probable cause, but preponderance of the evidence. So, and the one above it is clear and convincing. So we start out with beyond a reasonable doubt, then clear and convincing, and then preponderance of the evidence. So if you were to assign numbers to those, beyond a reasonable doubt is up there between 95 and 100. Clear and convincing is between 70 and 75. Beyond preponderance of the evidence is 51. But that's not what we're talking about here. What we're talking about here, according to that House committee, is substantial evidence. Substantial evidence. And substantial evidence is the kind of evidence, well, first of all, let's talk about what evidence is, okay? If I told you that, Michael, if I were to be sworn in a judicial or legislative proceeding and tell you that Michael St. Nicholas did not commit any crimes, that would be evidence. Is it compelling evidence? No, but it's evidence. So substantial evidence is the kind of evidence that is sufficient to allow people to rely and make a decision on, although other interpretations may be possible. So if this goes to the Justice Department and all the Justice Department has is what the Ethics Committee sends, if you listen to our friend Repeat, or is it Dick, Pete, Repeat, yeah. I always get confused with his name. He told us that the prosecutor's object is not to win the game, but to do justice. And a prosecutor has to have reasonable assurance that reason to believe that he can get a jury to convict beyond a reasonable doubt, or he shouldn't indict. In other words, if the prosecutor doesn't think he can get a conviction, he's got a fair chance of getting a conviction, he shouldn't indict. He can't indict just because he thinks an indictment would be proper, knowing that he can't get a conviction. Well, if all the Justice Department has is what the Ethics Commission sent over, all of it is based on substantial evidence, then what are we really talking about here? What we're talking about is talking points, not reasoning, not judicial, not legal theory, but talking points. And then St. Nicholas also points out, the timing here is a little suspicious, isn't it? They drag this thing out all this time, and they get 4 days before the cutoff point. And then all of a sudden they send it to the Justice Department. A little bit suspicious. I don't know how the Justice Department works. I don't know how the House Ethics Committee works. But they're all Democrats. And is it possible that some Democrats from here called some Democrats over there and said, hey, You know, we really need something on this guy, San Nicolas, to help our governor in the primary. I'm not saying that happened. I'm saying it could have happened, and that's all. That's as far as I'll go with it. But San Nicolas did a really good job here. He was in a really deep hole, and he's climbed up, and he's peeking out of the top of that hole right now. So if nothing else, you got to give him credit for knowing how to manipulate the media. Here he is, you know, really a serious problem, and Michael San Nicolas controls the media. And again, looking at it, standing back and looking at it from here, that's what we need. We need somebody in D.C., or we need a governor who has the ability to kind of say the stuff that I said when I was going through Zemi-Ekotny today. You know, hey, you guys over there, we're the front line of the defense of America. You got to help us out here. That's what we need. Back to San Nicolas. The fact that the Ethics Committee came out with this, and the fact that people are talking about it, San Nicolas did a really good job with what he had. But in this particular case, it's not going to be enough. There are enough quotes floating around here in various parts of the media, including things that came from his own mouth, that the media machine over there at the governor's office is going to be able to smear him every day of the week if that's what they want. And that's, like it or not, that's how elections are won. Ask Frank Hogan.
Ask Tenorio.
Well, Tenorio didn't need a smear campaign.
Well, he did it himself.
Yeah, he did it all. Yeah, it was a do-it-yourself job for him. So, like taking a little broader look at it yet, Felix Camacho went from the odds-on favorite to somebody for whom the odds don't favor. Because my initial analysis was that the San Nicolas and Leon Guerrero camps would be so vicious and wound each other so severely that when the election was over, the loser would not support the winner. The loser would stay home or support the Republican nominee. So in that sense, Felix Camacho would be the last man standing, which kind of looks like what he's trying to do. I'm really disappointed that he hasn't come out and campaigned. He's got to get his name and face and voice out there to the electorate. He doesn't have to get involved. You know, if your enemies are destroying themselves, don't help them. Just let them go. But he's got to get his name and face out there, especially now that this Ethics Commission thing is broken and really arms the governor. I think San Nicolas will lose. And not only that, the Ethics Committee salvo may be enough to discourage even some of the San Nicolas voters and cause them to change their mind and say, well, that was for Mike, but I don't know now, you know. And, of course, Lou will do everything she can to persuade him to come that way. So warning order, what we'd call in the military warning order. You may have your op plan all drawn up, Felix, but here's a warning order. You got to start campaigning now, because that Ethics Committee statement really is a game changer. You got to give San Nicolas credit. You know, he was given lemons, and he made some pretty tasty lemonade out of it, but he's still got a serious problem. All right, let's break for the big halftime show. I'd like to hear what you guys think about San Nicolas, the media, Felix, so on.
Point is KUSG, Hagåtña, Guam, 93.3 FM and 104.3 HD3.
Witnesses' veracity questioned. I'm Jack Callahan, Fox News. An explosive, albeit third-party account of President Trump's actions on January 6th offered to the House Select Committee yesterday.
Cassidy Hutchinson, special assistant to former President Trump in the Chief of Staff's office, is either a bold-faced liar or a whistleblowing patriot, depending on how much or how little you believed her testimony on Capitol Hill. Hutchinson telling the House committee investigating the January 6th protest that then President Trump was so angry that the Secret Service wouldn't let him go over to the Capitol for security reasons that he allegedly had a physical altercation with the Secret Service agents inside his armored vehicle.
Fox's Kevin Corke, but a source close to the Secret Service tells Fox News the two agents are willing to testify under oath there was no altercation. Former President Trump on his social media platform says the story is fake. In Tuesday's primaries, New York's Democrats have nominated Governor Kathy Hochul to run for the seat again in November against the Republican primary winner, Congressman Lee Zeldin. Critical Senate primaries decided in Oklahoma.
In the Oklahoma GOP Senate primary, Congressman Mark Wayne Mullen didn't get a majority, so he faces a runoff against T.W. Shannon to see who faces Democrat Kendra Horn for the retiring James Inhofe's Senate seat. Republican James Lankford easily won his Senate primary, but there will be a runoff between Madison Horn and Jason Bollinger to face him in November. In Illinois, Democratic House member Sean Casten beat fellow House member Marie Newman in a redrawn 6th district. In the 15th, in a battle of House Republicans, Mary Miller got the better of Rodney Davis.
Fox's Gernal Scott. Wall Street down again Tuesday. The Dow plunging 491 points. NASDAQ down 343. America is listening to Fox News.
The Extra Point with Jerry Roberts of Guam Training.
Hi, I'm Jerry Roberts, and every day on The Ray Gibson Show, I get to comment on the incredibly diverse, fun, challenging, sometimes frustrating, often exciting, but always interesting world of work. I hope you'll be there with us.
You can find daily transcripts of The Extra Point at guamtraining.com. Tune in every weekday morning at 7:20 for The Extra Point with Jerry Roberts, brought to you by Guahan Insurance Services and First Hawaiian Bank on 93.3 The Point.
Are you looking for a new place to hang out with your friends? Let's go along the sidelines at Sidelines Bar and Grill. Located at 154 Iriarty Road, Unit 4 and 5 in Tamuning behind Royal Bigs. Sidelines, a hidden gem with nothing but great things to offer. Great atmosphere, great food, top shelf drinks, and a great team. What are we waiting for? Let the fun begin at Sidelines Bar and Grill. Open daily from 3 p.m. to 2 a.m. See you there.
Now.
The U.S. Office of Special Counsel has ruled that Energy Secretary Jennifer Granholm violated the Hatch Act when she promoted Democrat candidates while speaking in her official capacity as a cabinet member. She gets a warning letter. The U.S. Supreme Court has stepped into a controversial redistricting issue in Louisiana.
With the 3 liberal justices dissenting, the high court paused an order from a lower court judge to create a second majority black congressional district in Louisiana. The court's action is similar to an order issued in Alabama that allowed the state to hold elections this year under a map drawn by that state's Republican-controlled legislature that contains 1 majority black district. The justices are hearing arguments in that case in October. The Louisiana case will remain on hold until that decision is made. Louisiana will hold elections this year under a congressional map adopted by its Republican-dominated legislature with white majorities in 5 of 6 districts. Lisa Lacera, Fox News.
The Tennessee man wanted for shooting a suburban Nashville police officer has been shot and killed in a shootout with state police in Kentucky. An accounting firm, a giant accounting firm, has been slapped with a record fine for employees cheating.
Some of the people meant to make sure there's no cheating get caught cheating. One of the world's largest auditing firms, Ernst & Young, has been hit with a $100 million fine, the largest ever of its kind, because hundreds of its auditors at the accounting giant cheated on ethics tests they were required to take to get or maintain their professional licenses, and the company withheld evidence of this misconduct from federal authorities investigating the matter, according to the Securities and Exchange Commission. Ernst & Young admitted to the SEC's charges and says it's complying with the agency's penalty.
Fox's Lillian Wu. And I'm Jack Callahan. This is Fox News.
Gas is expensive, so let the bank come to you. Through our remote deposit capture, you can deposit your checks into your account from your phone. And with our Dynamite Bank Pacific Visa debit card, you can use your money anytime, anywhere. It's the perfect combo.
Now we're banking on the future. Services to choose. Bank Pacific, where others put branches, we place roots.
Equal housing lender. Member FDIC. Crank it up.
Subway's Eat Fresh Refresh brings you the sequel to the Sweet Onion Chicken Teriyaki. Enjoy the new Sweet Onion Steak Teriyaki. Delight your taste buds with tender, juicy steak marinated in the tangy new Sweet Onion Teriyaki sauce and stacked high on toasted artisan Italian bread, topped with American cheese, green peppers, red onions, and drizzled with the tangy new Sweet Onion Teriyaki sauce. The new Sweet Onion Steak Teriyaki is the height of food craveability. Give in to your cravings at Subway. Eat fresh.
Listen to The Point anytime, anywhere on Odyssey. Odyssey is your new audio home for all the music, news, sports, and podcasts that matter to you. Find your favorite stations like The Point and discover more. Music stations, local and trusted news sources, sports talk and team coverage, plus today's biggest podcasts. Find it all on the Odyssey app. AUDACY.
So let's climb aboard the Tall Tales time machine. Joe Mannix is a Los Angeles-based detective who ends up taking a lot of punishment. When the show starts, he works for a large LA detective agency, Intertect. But beginning in season 2, he sets out on his own and becomes a private investigator, assisted by loyal secretary Peggy Fair, etc. It was a very popular television show back in the 60s. Yeah. You probably don't remember it, Jose. So back at that time, there was a local gentleman, a local player named Manuel Cruz, who for some reason picked up the name Mannix. And Mannix has really been plugged into the politics here on the island. He's been on the school board. He was the business agent for the American Federation of Government Employees. He has he's been director of labor. He ran for the legislature in 2002. He and I were brother campaigners on the campaign trail. So Mannix is really pretty much plugged into what goes on here on the island, and he is not a rhino. He's a real Republican. So I'm going to read Robert Underwood's latest masterpiece here, and then we'll get Mannix's take on it, in addition to mine. And this is what Underwood says. Do local Republicans support national GOP advocacy?
Well, prepare myself for talking points.
Yeah, we know now that we not only support it, we gloat about it. Near this year's 4th of July in North Carolina and Montana. If you want to see how this is represented to many Americans, you need to go to Walmart. They have a variety of proud to be American, red, white, and blue T-shirts and gear. Interestingly, they frequently have skulls and roaring motorcycles associated with them. This fascination with death, guns, bandanas, and faux machoism seems to be connected with, quote, freedom and being patriotic.
That's how the betas say it.
The gear is labeled Celebrate Patriotic. The shirts are made in China or El Salvador. The irony escapes most of the consumers. Freedom is a concept and a central operating value of a democratic society. It includes freedom of speech, religion, and the press. But there are other freedoms. Now here comes Mr. Lefty. As explained by President Franklin Roosevelt, argued in his Four Freedoms, these include freedom from want and freedom from fear. Now, the freedom from want, of course, is part and parcel of the whole Democrat agenda, right? We don't want people to want for anything. Therefore, it's the government's job to give them stuff. Like that Walmart that I went into, Robert saying, one that had all the patriotic gear. People shouldn't have to pay for that. They should just be able to go in and pick up what they want. But freedom from want. And the next title is Twisted. Today, this freedom has been twisted into a weapon against others. The freedom to love has been turned into the freedom to hate. Now, he's obviously talking about Herman and Henry there, right? The freedom to advance in society has been turned into the freedom to undermine your opponents. Yeah, like Michael St. Nicholas did to you when you ran for Congress and he beat the snot out of you. Yeah. Did they sell sour grapes in that Walmart you went into in Montana, Robert? The freedom to speak has been perverted by the freedom to lie. What woman has a right to do with her what she wants with her own body. Pay no attention to that other person inside her. That's the truth. A lack of restraint is seen as courageous. Courtesy is seen as political correctness and weakness. How else can we explain the acceptance of fascist behavior? Fascism is based on extreme expressions of nationalism, followed by intimidation and threat of violence to gain political power. Threat of violence to gain political power. Who would ever think of doing something like that? That's got to be like in Portland. Remember when they attacked the United States Post Office and oh no, wait, that wasn't Republicans, was it?
What about recently, where the Arizona legislature was broken into and vandalized? Nope, not the Republicans.
That wasn't Republicans, huh?
Those that were protesting on the steps of
Arizona,
the SCOTUS?
Yeah. No, that was not. We can't be too sure.
Kavanaugh's assassination attempt?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
No.
Yeah, extreme expressions of nationalism followed by intimidation and the threat of violence to gain political power. Threats to do harm to others who disagree with you have always been around. We normally think of it as aberrant behavior worthy of prosecution. This is how we are applying the laws to those who are apparently threatening Supreme Court justices today or presidents since the beginning of the United States. But of course, we're not applying that to those who threaten Supreme Court justices. We had a senator stand on the stairs of the Supreme Court, and all he got was cheers from the left. And the Democrats doxed the Supreme Court justices, and now they've got company out in front every night. Those Republicans. When threats and violence are organized as a political force determined to seize power and silence opposition, it's fascism. I don't think so. I think it's just the devotion to using mob rule to get what you want. What's the difference between the black shirts of Mussolini, brown shirts of Hitler, and Proud Boys of Trump?
I can't use Joe's laugh on this because I'm laughing.
Yeah.
Why he would take out some obscure group that's only up there because the media props them up.
Exactly.
And compares them to the brown shirts.
Yeah. And the black shirts. Yeah.
And the black shirts.
Yeah. So, I know there's a group called the Proud Boys, and I've read about them, and I know they have a person of color as their leader.
Exactly.
Which is really, really important. And I haven't heard that they've torn up anything. But, they support Trump, so obviously they got to be bad. Now, a little historical reflection. The brown shirts were led by a gentleman named Ernst Röhm. They were mostly made up of veterans of the German army after World War I, who were extremely disappointed in the way the peace treaty at the end of World War I came up. They were ultra-nationalists. They wanted to put Germany back on the map again. They were violent. They were corrupt. Rome himself, I would suspect that Rome would have some following now if people knew that he was a homosexual. That really puts a different light on it all, doesn't it? Yeah. Little identity politics goes a long way. So Rome had a force of about 2 million people, and Hitler probably could never have become the Chancellor of Germany had it not been for Rome and his black shirts. Rome wanted the black shirts to be absorbed into our German army, the Wehrmacht, or perhaps the other way around. Maybe he wanted the Wehrmacht absorbed into the brown shirts. Hitler couldn't put up with this, and Hitler needed the regular army on his side. He saw Rome as a threat. Rome had too many followers. So you history buffs remember the Night of the Long Knives, when Hitler's folks went out and murdered Rome and a couple hundred others of the black shirt leadership. Pistols right between the eyes. They work in a room, Rome's room. They gave him a pistol and said, "You know what to do with this, or we'll do it for you." That was the brown shirts. I suppose the Proud Boys do the same kind of stuff. We just never hear about it, right?
Nope.
The black shirts. Benito Mussolini was a socialist. And the difference between socialism and fascism is about the size of a gnat's whisker. The socialists, a socialist's approach is that the state must own the factors of distribution and production. So you have state automobile factory number 41 that builds cars that no one will buy. And then running the streetcars and the railroads and everything else. That's socialism. Fascists don't do that. What they do, though, is co-opt the management of private companies and make them do their bidding.
Sounds familiar.
Very, very familiar.
And it's a lot of propaganda,
Mm-hmm.
coercion,
Yeah,
intimidation.
exactly. Now, Mussolini himself was a journalist. And, of course, one of the things that the fascists did was take over the direction of the newspapers. They didn't nationalize the newspapers, but they didn't get any bad press either. So in 1922, Mussolini decided that it was time for him to become the ruler of Italy. And let's see, what did he call himself? El Duce. El Duce. Yo soy el Duce. Meaning the leader, right? So Mussolini and his black shirts started to march from northern Italy towards Rome. And he got good press all the way around. He said that his beef was that the Italian government was ineffective and corrupt. So when he got close to Rome, he demanded of the king, Victor Emmanuel, you've got to wipe out this so-called democratic, weak, useless government, and you got to put me in charge. Victor Emmanuel did it. Mussolini, El Duce, who was Hitler's hero and role model up until El Duce didn't do so well.
Things got turned upside down.
Yeah, for Mussolini. Yeah, Mussolini wound up hanging from a lamppost in Milan, Italy, next to his girlfriend, Clara Petacci. The people of Italy were so angry at what he had done to the country. The Italians sued for peace and came in as allies to the United States and Britain and the other good guys in World War II. So that's the black shirts and the brown shirts. Let me tell you everything I know about the Proud Boys. There's a group called the Proud Boys, and I don't know anything at all about them.
They disagreed with that other group, Antifa.
Yeah, that's right. They did.
I forgot to mention in the article.
Yeah, and in Portland, they did show up in the streets of Portland in opposition to Antifa. They didn't do anything violent. They didn't destroy anything, but that's who they are. They're against anarchy, Antifa, etc. Now, Robert is, Robert's a historian. And Robert has learned everything he knows about history from Ann Parasatori.
He just doesn't like to brag about it in his columns.
Right. Yeah, he's learned everything he knows about history from Ann Parasatori, who told that huge lie about the Insular cases on John Oliver's program last week tonight. He was the president of the university. He didn't take any steps at all. Not only did he not correct it, he repeats the lie himself. That's Robert. So then he goes on to say, what's the difference between the black shirts of Mussolini, brown shirts of Hitler, and the Proud Boys of Trump? Well, I just explained that. And another thing, there's absolutely no proof that there's any linkage between Donald Trump and whatever the Proud Boys are. Black shirts and brown shirts, yeah. So far, the Proud Boys have not taken over the government. You would have to split a lot of hairs to find out differences. Oh, Jose, you've got enough hair in your head for me to do that. Yeah.
Hey, now.
As a Montanan told me this week, finer than a frog's hair. The current state of advocacy in the National Republican Party continues to support the January 6th, here's the key word now, insurrection, as a dust-up. And one person called it a dust-up. And what happened to him? Canceled, right? That was that guy Del Rio.
From the Commanders?
Yeah, football team. Yeah, he called, and he was canceled. Exactly what we're talking about, because the left controls the media.
That sounds a little fascist.
Yeah. Okay. The current state of advocacy in the National Republican Party continues to support the January 6th insurrection as a dust-up and discuss the illegitimacy of Joseph Biden's election, which, as far as I'm concerned, is still a good discussion if you pay no attention to anything other than the electoral count vote and Article 1, Section 2 of that document that Robert probably doesn't pay any attention to. It's called the, help me here, Constitution. Yeah.
That pesky little document.
Yeah, the Constitution, according to the Democrats, the Constitution is void when in contradiction to local law. In their party platform, the Texas Republicans rejected any effort for gun reform and re-stigmatized our gay friends and family members as living an abnormal lifestyle choice. How awful. My goodness. Do they think LGBTQ members of the community are abnormal? I do. Do they want to change Guahan's gun registration laws? No Republican has ever made a peep. In fact, it was a Republican administration that really toughened up our gun control laws in the 1980s. And I haven't heard a single Republican come along and say we've got to toughen up our gun control laws. Do they endorse the insurrection of January 6th? Yeah. These are what we call rhetorical questions, Robert. They don't have much probative value, especially when the answer is always no. Is Joe Biden a duly elected president or not? The only thing I'm going to give you on that one is possibly. Dangerous. Franklin Roosevelt issued the Four Freedoms in 1941 to remind the complacent American people about the dangerous international situation with fascist powers. Germany and Italy were threatening other nations and intimidated their own people into silence. It seems, I'm not so sure of that from what I know about both Italian and German history. There was, once again, recognizing talent when you see it, Hitler was literally a mesmerizing figure. To mesmerize means to hypnotize. Hitler had an almost hypnotic control over the German people. Anyhow, that's not important. It seems necessary to remind ourselves that this is now an internal domestic threat, fascism, according to Robert. This is no time for excuse-making or looking the other way. And thank goodness we've got Republicans and people on the Supreme Court that are not doing that. Republican candidates in the local party need to exercise their freedom of speech and clarify their position on these important matters. I'm a Republican. Jose, let me brag a moment, okay? In 2004, I was a delegate from the Guam Republican Party to the Republican National Convention in Madison Square Garden. And I was able to cast one of Guam's 6 votes for George W. Bush. And I can't say that anything made me happier than that. In 1995, I ponied up $1,000 to become a life member of the Republican National Committee. In October, as you were in the fall of 2008, I packed up and moved to Cleveland for a couple of months to work in John McCain's campaign. I guess I didn't work hard enough. But I think I've got pretty good Republican credentials. I ain't no rhino, right? Republican candidates and the local party need to exercise their freedom of speech and clarify their position on these important matters. Well, I'm a Republican, and I clarified my position on these important matters. I have a sneaking suspicion that I'm not a voice in the wilderness when it comes to Republicans. The media has to exercise their freedom of the press and ask them, whoa, the media, freedom of press? Freedom is a concept and a central operating value of a democratic society. I think maybe it's kind of the other way around. A democratic society is an operating value of freedom. You can't have a democratic society if you don't have freedom. But, what was Robert? Just a university president. What does he know about stuff like this? Okay, remember when I was telling you about Mannix, a private eye? Here's Mannix. Let's go to for the 7th inning stretch, and we'll come back to Mannix.
We're already Pica's best radio station, but we're always looking for ways to be even better. Announcing the point on Alexa. In addition to our FM and HD radio feeds, our incredible app, informative website, Facebook Live, and YouTube Live, you can now tell Alexa to stream The Point. And your smart speaker will start playing whatever we're saying. News and views 24/7 with your 4-word command. Alexa, Stream The Point.
Choice Broadcasting introduces their unbeatable lineup of morning show.
Hands down winners of Guam's morning radio battle.
Daryl Lizama grooves his way through Boss 104 playing Guam's favorite classic hits.
Morning mouth Ray Gibson shakes the cage on 93.3 The Point.
And now, we are proud to announce the Morning Blender with Kyle Mandapat, mixing it up at sunrise on Star 101.
If you're an advertiser trying to reach the most valuable ears, we've got the shows that listeners have been tuning into for decades.
One call gets all three.
671-888-7346. That's 888-REIO.
Okay, so here we are with Mannix. Mannix Cruz versus Underwood. After reading Robert Underwood's comments in Saturday's opinion column, quote, "Where do Republicans stand?" I found it necessary to submit a response. Typical of Mr. Underwood's previous articles, he was again showing his colors as a critical race theorist. And of course, we know Robert is a critical race theorist because in one of his columns, he told us that he had been a critical race theorist since 1972. In his article, he made a number of references to the word, quote, freedom. But his definition of freedom was meant to fit his own personal interpretation. How dare he correlate his definition to the current upheaval of freedom in America? How dare he, Jose?
How dare you?
How dare he place the Republican Party as the instigator of such an upheaval? Now, he's talking about, the summer of 2020 when George Floyd died, and the whole left wing and the Democrats went nuts and destroyed all kinds of stuff. And he wants to blame that on the Republicans. It was those Proud Boys. Just look at the news, not the news that the corrupt public media had been presenting to the people. As far as I'm concerned, most of the news that was being presented can easily be termed fake news. Even the so-called, quote, big lie that Mr. Underwood was making reference to are now being brought to bear with a select committee of the House of Representatives regarding the January 6th insurrection event. In my opinion, the whole spectacle being shown on TV is a perverse way of making a case against former President Trump to stop him and his influence in the midterm national elections and any plans for him to run again as president in 2024. And I agree. You know, they might even impeach Trump after these hearings are over.
Again?
The old saying is the third time is the charm, right? And you don't have to be in office to be impeached when it's the Democrats that control the House. To put it in proper perspective, it appears that Mr. Underwood is making his own personal political case to stop the local Republican Party from taking back Adelup and the majority of the Guam legislature. If Mr. Underwood feels that protests against the Supreme Court justices were an example of aberrant behavior worthy of prosecution, he should point the finger at his friend, President Joe Biden, and the Department of Justice. How can you deny that those protesters were not breaking the law? Even the current protests at the Supreme Court and around the country following the Supreme Court decision to overturn Roe versus Wade are worthy of note. I wonder what's driving Mr. Underwood to compare all those organized threats and violence to a political force to seize power and silence opposition. And he labeled these events as fascism. It's interesting to note that Mr. Underwood made reference to the Proud Boys as Trump's associates. I have to admit that such a statement was perfectly in line with the thinking and political plans of his friends in the Select Committee of the House of Representatives. I don't think the National Democrat Party is going to place the January 6th insurrection as the top national issue to elect Democrats in the midterm election this fall. There are more important issues such as inflation, the cost of gas, baby formula shortages, the southern border failures, and he forgot to mention the withdrawal from Afghanistan disaster. As far as the local Republican position in this year's local election, we stand for the truth and do not rely on fake news and misinformation. The Republican Party is the party of the people. We don't discriminate. We believe in God and in the family. We're pro-life and respect the sanctity of life. We do not intend to cancel the Chamorro culture. We are against any form of critical race theory. We believe in the Chamorro tradition and family values. We do not believe in freedom as a concept, but as a reality. Let's give Mannix a big hand here. You know, and I hope you keep it up, Mannix, because Underwood, you know, writes every week, almost every week. His column are great fodder for my show because it's always the same thing. And we need to have people coming back and letting him and the public know that he's not the only one out there that has a voice. And let him know that he's wrong most of the time. Okay, let's see what we can take up next here. Yeah, I want to go next to the left versus the Sixth Amendment. Where's my book here? Oh, by the way, Harvey Egna commented on my suggestion that if for some reason the United States decided not to defend Guam, the Chinese would be in here in a heartbeat. And Harvey Egna had a really good proposal to keep them under control. He says we should just tell them about the Third Amendment to the Constitution. Here's the Third Amendment. No soldier shall in time of peace be quartered in any house without the consent of the owner, nor in time of war, but in a manner to be prescribed by law. This would stop the Chinese dead in their tracks, right? Yeah. Okay, the Sixth Amendment. In criminal prosecutions, the accused shall enjoy the right to a speedy and public trial by an impartial jury of the state and district wherein the crime shall have been committed, which district shall have been previously ascertained by law, and to be informed of the nature and cause of the accusation, to be confronted with witnesses against him, to have compulsory process for obtaining witnesses in his favor, and to have the assistance of counsel for his defense. So even criminals are entitled to assistance of counsel for defense. And then the Seventh Amendment. In suits at common law, where the value in controversy shall exceed $20, the right to trial by jury shall be preserved, and no fact tried by jury shall otherwise be reexamined any court of the United States than according to the rules of common law. Okay, so these are a couple of the really important things that guide lawyers in the things that they do. Everybody has a right to counsel. Lawyers have a duty to defend people in criminal cases. Even the most heinous criminal is entitled to an adequate defense. So if a lawyer defends a heinous criminal and says, kind of sotto voce, this guy's a scumbag, he really needs to be convicted, I'm not going to vigorously defend him, that can be grounds for reversal. Ineffective assistance of counsel is a grounds for reversal. Anyone who is convicted in a state who can make a case for ineffective assistance of counsel, jumps through the rights hoops in a timely manner, can file a petition for habeas corpus in federal court and can get out from under the conviction that was the product of ineffective assistance of counsel. So lawyers have to be able to do their work. They have to be able to do jobs. They have to be able to take unpopular cases. And it's always a mistake to judge the lawyer by the cases that he takes. The fact that William Kunstler defended guys like John Gotti and these other guys doesn't mean, oh, that guy, look who he defended. You got to give him credit. If he's a good lawyer, he's a good lawyer, and everybody is entitled to that. Okay, we have an article here from my buddy Turley, who's been like gold here recently. Let's go to Churchill Downs, and we'll come back to Turley.
Original Chamorro restaurant with Pica's Best 5 years running. Mezcla Chamorro Fusion Bistro. Experience Chef Peter's candied salmon over scallion coconut rice, octopus to naktak, Chamorro platter, and their award-winning gourmet hamburgers. Or if you're looking for something healthy, try their keto-friendly menu. Come and enjoy Mezcla's half-a-day service at their Hagåtña and Grand Plaza Tumon location. Call their Hagåtña location at 479-2652 for reservations.
Half a day. Patsy Gogri from Security Title here with information about what a title company does. The title side of our business determines who owns a property and guarantees your ownership with a title insurance policy. The escrow side acts as an independent third party, managing the transfer of money and documents between the buyer, seller, lenders, and others. Security Title has a management of real estate closings down to a science. Give us a call. We are here to help.
So here we are at Churchill Downs, heading down the home stretch, six furlongs more, and I'll be crossing the finish line for another day here on Tall Tales. Next item on the card, the left versus the 6th and 7th Amendments. This is from my buddy Turley. The headline of the article that ran on his website is, "The first thing we do," that's a quote, "the first thing we do. Liberals push 2 leading lawyers out of a major firm after winning Second Amendment case." Now, the Second Amendment case is the Bruin case, where Mr. Justice Thomas said that people do, in fact, have a right to carry arms out in public, and some faceless, pencil-neck bureaucrat with no limits on his discretion can't deny people that right. A tremendous victory for those of us who believe in the right to keep and bear arms. So that's what this column is about. And you would think that the lawyers who won that victory, you would think that anybody who wins any case before the Supreme Court is entitled to a victory lap anytime he wants to take it, right? That's the major leagues. That's the World Series. So here's the column. As previously discussed, there has been a campaign from the left to pressure firms to force out Republican lawyers. Are you listening here, Robert? To force out Republican lawyers or to drop conservative clients with the support of lawyers and legal commentators. You don't have to control the media. They don't have to own these firms. They just got to have them on the string. Now, after former Solicitor General Paul Clement's a famous guy in the law circles, and his colleague Aaron Murphy, Aaron Murphy, that's a nice name. Where do you suppose his forebearers came from?
Patio.
Yeah. His colleague Aaron Murphy won one of the most significant constitutional victories in history, Kirkland and Ellis has yielded to the mob and forced them out of the firm. It seems that if you want to take a Second Amendment case, you should have the decency of losing. Come on, man.
Wait, what?
In a column in the Wall Street Journal, the lawyers recount how they were shown the door after objections from lawyers in the firm and clients. We don't need no stinking gun rights lawyers around here. The left appears to be channeling the views of Dick the Butcher. Sounds like we're back to Downs again, doesn't it? Downs and abortion. The left appears to be channeling the views of Dick the Butcher in Shakespeare's Henry VI that, quote, the first thing we do, let's kill all the lawyers. It's Shakespearean. When I get to the end, I'll come back and clarify that a little bit. With no sense of shame or self-awareness, John Ballas, chairman of Kirkland's executive committee, said, "We wish them the best of luck in the future and look forward to collaborating with them in matters not involving the Second Amendment." Yeah, they can't handle the disgrace of getting involved in constitutional litigation. Imagine if the firm said that about defending other individuals' rights like equal protection or privacy. It's not hard because that was a position at one time where lawyers were told not to represent women, civil rights groups, or other causes. Now it's the left that's pressuring firms not to represent those asserting rights contained in the Bill of Rights. Wallace is saying that you're welcome to return as long as you do not represent those people who want to submit claims to the federal courts on constitutional rights. The Supreme Court has decided since Heller that the Second Amendment bestows an individual right. Many disagree with that view, including me, but I still back it. But these are issues that need to be fully and well argued before the court on both sides. I would be writing the same column if conservatives sought to prevent lawyers from representing pro-choice or gun control clients. And that's Turley for sure. What is astonishing is that this effort sounds like it was pushed by other lawyers, including former colleagues at the firm. In the past, the effort to deny representation to conservative groups was led by the scandal-plagued Lincoln Project. What was shocking was the list of donors supporting this and other campaigns by the project. Now, you remember the Lincoln Project, the anti-Trump guys, where even the president's, what was her name? Husband. You know who I'm talking about, yeah. Her husband was one of the prime movers of the Lincoln Project. One notable name, back to Kirkland and Ellis, is Randall Eliason, who writes for the Washington Post. Eliason wrote a column that I previously criticized that supported the campaign against other lawyers. Well, Eliason notes briefly that the Lincoln Project was suspended on Twitter for doxing Trump lawyers and said such abuses are never appropriate. He did not mention that he is one of the donors of the group that carried out such abuses. Having lawyers calling for such severance of lawyers and clients does not change his character as a form of mob justice. Yeah, that's exactly what Mannix and I think. These campaigns have been successful in intimidating firms, including one of the largest firms in the world. Rather than risk the loss of clients, Kirkland and Ellis turned its back on the core legal values that define our profession. This is a huge victory for the voices of intolerance and orthodoxy in our profession. With a major firm like Kirkland surrendering to such pressure, many smaller firms will doubt their own ability to stand on principle against the mob. And it is the same movement that has stripped most law schools of conservative or libertarian faculty across the country. That's a fact. That is a fact. And that's why I go back to it again. When the Yale Law School freshman class, remember, hooted those people who were talking about freedom of press, hooted them right out of the classroom. The faculty and administration went along with it. A really, really bad sign. But I'm not going to despair now. I'm still gloating because I still think, now I have hope. I think we can win. Winding up Turley's column, if it's any solace for those lawyers, Chief Justice Earl Warren, a liberal icon, once said, quote, "Everything I did in my life that was worthwhile, I caught hell for." Yeah, that would be a good motto for Tall Tales, wouldn't it? Yeah, very good article. Again, by Turley. Okay, we got about 10 more minutes to go. And I'm holding up a little bit on Levin and and taking him on and some of the other parts of the abortion story in the local setting. But I'm going to go now to, and I won't be able to finish this today. Where's my stapler here? Throwing everything on the floor. I'm going to aborters versus Scottus. And as I mentioned earlier in the show, I have invented a new word, aborters. One who conducts an abortion is an abortionist. Whether, a doctor that goes in and kills that baby inside the mother is called an abortionist. Aborters are people who support abortions, advocate it, etc. They don't even need to aid or abet it, just advocate it. And the two examples I can give you are Jane Flores and Lourdes Leon Guerrero, our governor. And here's an article that ran in the Post. Governor will work with senators for safe, legal abortion. Governor Leon Guerrero said she will work closely with the legislature to continue providing, quote, to continue providing our women, unquote, access to abortion care in light of the U.S. Supreme Court's reversal of decades-old precedent that established abortion as a right in the United States. Several questions have arisen in the aftermath of the court's decision in Dobbs versus Jackson's Women's Health Organization, the case that overturned rulings in Roe versus Wade and Casey versus Planned Parenthood. The new decision essentially allows states to set their own laws on abortion. How undemocratic. That's just going to be the ruination of our democracy. It should be the courts that decide these things, if we're really democratic. The new decision essentially allows states to set their own laws on abortion, including bans on the procedure. Guam attempted to ban almost all abortions in the 1990s through Public Law 20-134. The ban also contained a voter referendum provision to determine if it should be repealed. The law was quickly challenged and determined unconstitutional at the time in light of Roe versus Wade. A federal court placed an injunction on the ban. The law was never repealed, however, and I commented on that. In fact, I wrote a column or an op-ed piece on that probably 7, 8, 9, 10 months ago, saying although our statute banning abortion is unconstitutional, it's still a good example of the public policy of Guam, because the legislature never saw fit to repeal it after the declaration of unconstitutionality, suggesting, but not determining, that the people still want to ban abortion. If that hadn't been the case, then somebody would have stood up and repealed Public Law 20-134. Didn't happen. But then, with the U.S. High Court's reversal last week, Senator Mary Torres, also known as Senator Mary Torres, R. Argentina, Republican from Argentina, and Speaker Tina Rose Munga Barnes sent a series of questions to the Attorney General asking whether the decision would have any effect on Guam, considering the permanent injunction on the old ban, whether the voter referendum in the law was required for the ban to stand, and if the legislature needed to amend the date of the referendum. Of course, one of the things on my card deals with how long Levin is going to be able to hang on to this without doing anything forever. You know, he would ask Luz for her script where she says,
Forever!
Yeah, if he could. Governor Lilian Guerrero also said Monday morning that her legal team was looking into the specifics of the 1990s ban and referendum, while adding that abortion remains legal under Guam law. In Guam, over the past 40 years, the legislature has passed laws regarding abortion access, and the courts have issued decisions based on Roe versus Wade. The Scottish decision in Dobbs will have a significant impact on both. The Office of the Attorney General's role, it's not an office, it's a person. The Attorney General is not to make public policy decisions, but to support the Constitution and the rule of law. Hear, hear. The statement from the AG's office states that after the injunction on Public Law 20-134, abortion law from the 1970s, has remained in effect. In other words, prior law came back into force. This law allows abortions within 13 weeks of pregnancy, within 26 if the child would be born with grave defects, or if the pregnancy was a result of rape or incest, and at any time if it's determined the pregnancy would pose a danger to the mother. In barring enforcement of the ban years ago, the court also determined that an island-wide referendum was no longer needed, according to the Office of the Attorney General. While state legislatures can now address abortion as they see fit, the governor's position on abortion is clear. She supports abortion access as a matter of women's health. In order for women to be healthy, you got to kill the baby inside of them. Talk about a zero-sum game. I'm going to work very closely with the legislature to continue providing our women a safe, hygienic, legal abortion, and to continue to make that choice part of the whole reproductive health. My position is centered over the right to women's health care. Now, what is the source of that right, Lourdes? The right to women's health care to include everything, including termination of a pregnancy. When asked about plans to work with the legislature and possibly call on lawmakers to repeal the 1990s ban, the governor said she had been in discussion with Speaker Talahi on, quote, some ideas. I got to come back to this tomorrow. We got to spend a lot of time on this issue. We'll do it tomorrow. But for now, I got to say, let's go, Brandon.
The Point is KUSG, Hagåtña, Guam, 93.3 FM and 104.3 HD3.
The men who were there say it didn't happen. I'm Jack Callahan, Fox News. 2 Secret Service agents say they are willing to testify to Congress to directly refute Tuesday's testimony to the January 6th committee by former White House aide Cassidy Hutchinson, who says she was told that former President Trump demanded to be taken to the Capitol on January 6th last year and then lunged at the steering wheel of his limousine when he was told he could not.
I remember feeling frustrated, disappointed, and really, it felt personal. It was really sad.
Agent Bobby Engel, who was then head of the president's security detail, and the agent who was driving the vehicle are prepared to testify those things didn't happen. It's not clear if the committee will take the agent's testimony. The former president calling Hutchinson a total phony and says her testimony was fake. Primary election day in several states Tuesday. New York, Congressman Lee Zeldin has won the GOP nomination to run for governor. Kathy Hochul, who became governor when Andrew Cuomo was forced to quit last year, has been nominated by the Democrats. In Illinois, in a battle of GOP incumbents in a redrawn district, it ends with first-term Congresswoman Mary Miller beating sixth-term Republican Rodney Davis. In Nebraska, State Senator Mike Flood has won the special election to fill the unexpired term of Congressman Jeff Fortenberry, who resigned after being convicted of lying to federal agents about illegal campaign contributions. 5 more people trapped in a smuggler's truck in Texas have died. That makes 51 fatalities from Monday's tragedy. Texas Republican Congressman Pat Fallon says the immigration system is being abused.
Basically, we're going to have a de facto open border because what these NGOs and what the progressives are telling the folks that migrate illegally to the country is to claim asylum.
Gas prices have fallen slightly for the 15th straight day, down 1.3 cents a gallon from yesterday. According to AAA, the average now just over $4.88. America.